I'm Jeremy Martin with Cambridge House International, and joining me is Jeff Desjardins from tickerscores.com and Visual Capitalist. Jeff, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you've done some very interesting things with both of these companies, Visual Capitalist and tickerscores.com. But before we get into that, I just want to ask, you look around these shows in this type of industry, there's a lot of gray hairs. Not very often you see young guys like ourselves involved in the industry in a big way. So how did you get involved?
Yeah, so I originally started working, I'm from the marketing and media industry, so that was really what we were doing before we ever got involved in the resource space. So in marketing and media, I mean, we were working with ad firms and some of these companies that really know what they're doing from that perspective. And I had the opportunity to come up to consult for some mining companies and bring some of those ideas from the ad space and from the media space into an industry that is not usually up to the same sort of levels of modern media. So I kind of brought those ideas in, and that's how I ended up in the industry.
That is one thing that there does seem to be a bit of a lag between some of the marketing concepts that some of these juniors will include in the marketing plans versus what other industries around the world, the technology industry, really takes hands on. So I guess how did you sort of recognize that, and what has prompted you, or what have you helped do for that with Visual Capitalist?
Well, it's just one of those things where you want to bring something that's a benefit in another industry or place and bring it into another one where you can use it and develop a following with it. So, I mean, what we did is we looked at the industry itself, and we took a look around at the companies and what they were doing and how they were reaching out to investors. And then we brought in sort of a new concept that we thought worked in a lot of other industries, and we applied it into this industry. And from there, we really let it evolve on its own.
And it seems to have done a good job of that, evolving on its own. It's moving forward. You've tackled quite a few different topics and things like that. Now, sort of talking on a young individual like yourself, you've taken something that you recognize works somewhere else. How much of an influence do you think? There's a lot of young guys who aren't sort of paying attention to this market. So things like this, what else can we sort of be doing to capturing new eyeballs to a junior space that right now is kind of hurting quite a bit?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, it's a space that's obviously very cyclical, and it's also a space where, when you go on a big bull market, you capture people's attention. It surprised me that the bull market starting in the early 2000s leading up to now didn't capture people's attention, especially young people's attention, as much as I thought it would. I mean, having graduated from UBC in Vancouver in the business school there, no one ever came to our classes and said, hey, we have this resource industry that's hopping right now, there's lots of opportunities, come and check it out. No one ever said that. And to investors, unless if you were heavily involved in the space, you didn't really know it was there.
Do you think that there's a bit of fault on maybe some of the educational programs not letting people know about the opportunities that exist here?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that, especially in a place like Vancouver and Howe Street, which is sort of the center for the resource industry, I think in Vancouver people are looking to things like tourism and maybe real estate as sort of the key markets here. But people need to know that this type of market exists as well. And I think it's the industry's responsibility to help look towards that as well. And I don't think we've been doing a good enough job.
So perhaps just give a quick explanation about what Visual Capitalist has done for that through the infographics and the storytelling and things like that.
Right. So our concept is that science says that 65% of people are visual learners. So if people are visual learners, the majority of people, and that includes investors, then why aren't we using visual mediums to appeal to people? When I first got into this industry, I noticed that all of the communications were sort of plain press releases and tables of drill results and sort of, and to be fair, the booths at conferences and the materials that they have now is light years ahead of how it was a few years ago. But when I first got into the space, it definitely needed to evolve. And so from our angle, which is the idea of applying visuals to all of these areas of communication, we brought that in and we wanted to appeal to that audience because I think everyone has an information overload nowadays. You get millions of emails in your inbox, you see media all over the place, you see websites and social media and everything all over the place, and you're trying to retain this information, but there's so much out there. So what good visuals and storytelling does is it creates a medium that people want to share, that people want to look at, When our people, investors, open up our emails from their inbox, they can look at it and be like, oh, this is actually something that I want to read versus have to read. And that makes a big difference. That means that people are going to share the content. It means that media is going to post the content. You don't have to pay them anything to do it. They're just going to post it because it's good content. And that's sort of how we built our model.
Now, yeah, that storytelling, as you're mentioning, the narrative, putting it into a visual way that's exciting, letting people have easy access to it and sharing it, that's really helping. Now, behind all that, you've been doing a lot of other things with this tickerstores.com. You've amassed a tremendous amount of information. Why don't you just walk us through that a little bit?
Right, so as Visual Capitalist is looking sort of towards companies and helping them reach investors, what tickerscores.com is sort of the opposite route. We're looking at providing better information to investors so that they can make better choices with the companies that they choose to invest in. So again, it's sort of a similar idea in a lot of ways. It revolves around transparency and information and being able to provide the highest quality content. Mm-hmm. And in this case, the idea is that investors for too long have been left out in the dark in terms of having access to as much information that they need. I mean, obviously, places like the show are great where they can go and talk to CEOs, they can talk to companies and get that information, but it's not that distant of a time when there was the boiler rooms calling up people saying, hey, we have this kind of stock, whatever, but you're not able to instantly access the information on it. So what we're doing is we're basically creating a database of companies, and we're covering them all independently and unbiased so that people know that the information is good. And we're covering dozens of metrics that are all things that are important that people need to know. Management, common share ownership, burn rates, general administrative expense ratios, all these sort of different things that an investor should be looking for from at least a quantitative and empirical side of things before looking at a stock. And what we've done is packaged it all up nicely with our kind of signature visual touch and created a universal scoring mechanism that allows people to compare apples with apples.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's as you're mentioning, we've moved on from the days of boiler rooms and things like that, and with the internet, 100% transparency, people are able to see what's going on, and that's important for investors to have tools like that. Any other kind of ideas as how do we get more young people involved here? I mean, we're seeing a little bit of traction, but is it ideas like this? What else can we be doing to encourage them?
Well, I think one important thing is that, I mean, obviously the industry needs to be picking up from in terms of the TSXV and the TSX. We got to go up again for people to be interested. No one wants to go in an industry that's losing money. So that's hopefully happening right now. We are seeing lots of good signs. But aside from that, I think that young people their values are fairly specific. I think that they're interested in things like transparency and corporate responsibility and a lot of these things. And when they think mining companies, the two images don't really coincide as good as they can. And so there's a lot of messaging that we can do. When you look at things like copper, all green energy in the world can't exist without copper to transport the electricity. When you look at rare earths and things like that, you need these things in the magnets and windmills and that type of thing as well. So there's a spin that we can put on all the stuff that we do in mining that's actually really beneficial to the earth. And I think that young people just think differently now than they used to, and we need to appeal our messages to that group.
And that sort of comes back to corporate responsibility and these companies portraying the right messages. Making sure that there is that visibility online, and these investors and new young investors are able to pick and choose the ones that they know are doing good things as well as yielding results. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for joining me, and see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.